Hi there, this is Jimmy Roberts. When it comes to the game of golf, there is no place on earth like the metropolitan area. It's always been a special place for the game of golf and also for golf writing. Some of the most esteemed and accomplished journalists covering the game work here. Now, you'll get a chance to hear them right here on the Metropolitan Golf Writers Association podcast. Enjoy.
All right, Jaeger Kovich. Thank you for joining me. Jaeger is the founder and or creator of Proper Golf. He's a golf course architect and a company that designs and builds, doesn't just design, gets there in the dirt. Jaeger, thank you for joining the Met Golf Writers podcast.
Yeah, great to be with you. It's been a fun Monday here in New Jersey. We were just walking around at Knickerbocker watching the U.S. Open qualifying, and now nice to take a little lunch break and chat.
Yeah, big doings. We're obviously, as Jaeger alluded to, we're recording on golf's longest day, so he's
Yeah,
there scoping out the Met area final qualifying section. How many spots are there at Knickerbocker this year? Is it always?
I think they said four and
Yeah.
two alternates.
Yeah, that's what I figured. It's usually the same, and they've had some exciting days there.
Yes, I've had this day circled on my calendar since uh we were lucky enough to be hired here over the winter. So yeah, excited to see how the club operates it on that end, where the boys smash it on that side. And I'm just kind of snooping around out there watching some friends and working on my plans with the clipboard. But it's a beautiful day. The greens are rolling really nice, so should be a lot of fun this afternoon.
Well, I'm glad they got a great day because it hasn't been the greatest spring. I mean, okay for growing, I guess maybe is it's been pretty good, but for playing golf, it hasn't been spectacular by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, it's been I mean, for me doing a lot of construction at a few different places in the area, it was a trying winter. And then there's been some very helpful things for me on the construction end a little bit when it kind of got dry for a while, but that made other things difficult for like people playing. But it's really just like a little past Memorial Day. Hopefully the summer's properly here now, and if we get an unbelievable October like we had last year, we'll forget about it quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Let's start with the beginnings. Where did this passion for golf course architecture begin for you?
Yeah, well, I guess, my everybody always wants to know, how did you get to be a golf course architect? And my kind of jokey short answer is hard work and luck. But I grew up in New York City, and it started by lugging my dad's Callaway S2H2s up the street and around the corner. It's like I learned how to play golf at the Randall's Island driving range. That was like the first thing we could do as a kid growing up in New York City.
Yeah.
And then we weren't members at a club or anything, so I guess we just started having to go play different public golf courses in the area, from Van Cortlandt to I always loved Split Rock.
Yeah.
And then you had to beg, mom or dad or someone for a ride. And we just kind of kept going to different places. And I really liked analyzing the different courses like that. I had a pretty sort of eye-opening experience at the '04 Open at Shinnecock Hills, where I was still pretty early in learning how to play golf there in high school. And I walked around most of the day and just randomly stopped on the seventh tee there and watched group after group after group come through, and then no one could hit and hold the green. And then finally, um, this one group with Darren Clark, Adam Scott, and VJ Singh, and they dropped like buckets of balls on the tee, and just nobody could hit and hold the green. And I was like, something kind of, I've never
Yeah.
seen anything like
Yeah.
that before.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
I went
it's kind
home
of
and
like watching stop to watch the train wreck, right? And you sort of,
well, it wasn't there yet, but it was just the when, but you could, I was like trying to explain, and then you go home and the Golf Channel's starting to talk a little bit about some stuff, and it was a sort of eye-opening, interesting thing for someone was like, oh, these golf course things could be pretty cool.
yeah.
I went I kind of caught that bug really quick. My senior year in high school, I did a year-long project where I designed a golf course on the school's campus, and then I went to architecture. I went to Hobart College for architecture, and basically every art project I ever did had some sort of golf thing
Yeah.
involvement.
Yeah.
I it's kind of talked my way into being a free intern for Mundrum Cornish Golf Design, and started caddying at Quaker Ridge, and like became just enamored with Tillinghast design. Uh, you know, um, so I was writing 25-page papers on Tilly in college, and then I figured out I read Tom Doak's Minimalist Manifesto and the Anatomy of Golf while caddying at Quaker, and learned that you really need to learn how to get on the bulldozer and the excavator and be super involved in the construction. So I was really keen to learn about that stuff, and I figured out Tom had an internship program, and I applied for that. And I went out to Bandon to interview with him, and him and Bill Core were talking about these upcoming projects they had in China. But I graduated in 2009, and there were like no projects happening here in the U.S. The project I was supposed to work on got canceled. So I went home. I kept caddying. I talked my way into like working for a local golf contractor around here. Then I caddied on the week, so I worked for him during the week, caddied on the weekends, and bought a Mandarin Rosetta Stone. And I bugged Tom for 2 more years, and
Oh yeah.
eventually I kept doing this stuff for 2 years at night and caddying and learning how to. Actually, my first ever day of golf construction was picking up rocks at Canoe Brook, so it's cool to be working on their plans now. But eventually, Tom's project in China came online, and he hired me, and it was the greatest thing ever. I worked for him for 3 years, and then we came back, founded Proper Golf in 2014 on the heels of that. He kind of helped me get my foot in the door with the Village Club of Sands Point out on Long Island,
Yeah.
mid-area course, one of
Yeah.
his early designs. And eventually I started working for Gil Hanse as well. Spent the better part of 7, 8 years with Gil. We did a few great projects here in the Med area, but went all over the country, and somehow, here we are.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I want to don't gloss over. You wrote a thesis on the design of A.W. Tillinghast. What was
Yeah.
the thesis? What did you
Um,
your
s-
findings? What was
yeah, so
because that was
I
pretty cool.
well, I mean, to the world's biggest golf nerd, I think it's pretty cool,
Yeah,
but
I think so too.
So I had his book, The Course Beautiful. I had obviously got pretty familiar with Quaker pretty quick. I had seen Wingfoot in the '06 Open. I got to play at Balti. I picked up loops at Bethpage Black and Ridgewood and so Fenway. And I was just he has a lot of writings about like, the master pit, or like the immaculate um shaping and the combination between the approaches and the greens and the gateway to the green and all these types of things. And then you see like kind of his template holes, like the Great Hazard or the
Yep.
double dog leg, or Quaker had a reef hole. But,
Yep.
he's done a couple of these like Muirfield routings where like Quaker goes around the outside 1 through 8. And I was just at Balt the other day, and like that's like a double Muirfield where like both upper lower, they go perimeter and then back through the middle. So there's like a lot of sort of like kind of like Tilly, quote unquote, like templatey things or like things he kind of, which is like I was kind of picking up on some of those types of things, while at the same time just admiring how like every single one of his golf courses is like great, but they all feel like they're built by the same guy, but they're so unique and different, right? Like the
Yeah.
bunkers at Quaker and Wingfoot couldn't be more different. And even then Fenway, just the three clubs right on the same street all have such unique personalities, but you've got yeah, just a lot of
Oh,
funny connections, and as someone that was just like enamored with this stuff really quickly, I was just like, maybe I was right on something, maybe I was wrong on some other things, but it was a fun way to spend a senior year class at
yeah, no,
school.
for sure. And you put that very well. That was well put because I feel like sometimes people who don't know golf course architecture sometimes say, well, that's a Tillinghast or they want to apply some, and don't get me wrong, CV McDonald, Rayner, like there are definitely things that people have applied and where you can say that that's a Rayner, whatever.
Hmm.
Until he had some tools that he constantly employed like a
Yeah,
little Tilly, like a Great Hazard, like a
yeah.
Reef. So you can apply that, but to your point, I don't think of all the I guess Golden Age architects, he's the one that I think had the most variety. I feel like he just fit whatever golf course fit the land. And then, if he could employ one of his little tricks of the trade, then he did. But he didn't force anything in there if he didn't have to. If he, not everyone has a little Tilly,
Yeah.
but not everybody has a hazard, a great hazard. But the point is that he just fit for what it was there. And I don't think, what I love about what you said is you can feel it, but there's nothing that you can say, well, that's other than the template hole or whatever the case may be, you don't really say that's a Tilly. You know it's a Tilly, but you can't just point something at it.
Yeah, I agree. I think his certainly in our area for the golden age guys, I think his golf, he's a bit of the chameleon, if you will.
Definitely.
And he really brought the best out in each individual property like over and over and over again. Some greens are high in the sky like Wingfoot, and some are super flat along the ground. There's a handful of them
Yeah.
at Balky Lower, and I just I find it incredibly interesting, and I work in lots of different styles, whether on my own or restoring other things, and I like doing things that are different, but there's probably a little bit of uh, similar mindset in some ways if you really peel it back a lot. So yeah, I try to uh, probably not be quite as brash or mischievous. Perhaps I can only imagine him with some committees and things like that. But I think I mean, his green complex is the amount of just unbelievable, inspiring putting surfaces and things he built in the area are just incredible. So I
Have
could
you
never tire.
have you been to Bethpage Black? You said you looped a couple of
Oh,
times.
yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely. Played it, caddied there, absolutely.
one of the things that really I feel like they missed the boat on when they decided to bring the Open there. If you go to the seventh green, which is a par five for the public and par four for them, and
Hmm.
those listening, it's the hole prior to the downhill par three over water that used to
Yeah,
have a tree and they finally taken it out. But if you go to that green and you look at that complex, they where the mounds behind the greens that are now covered in rough were all part of the original green. And instead of expanding out to where the bunkers were, they expanding the greens to the bunkers, they just brought the bunkers to the green. And that was obviously, listen, there was a lot. I mean, it was a World War II and they stopped cutting the greens. They just had circles. So there was a lot going on. But I was like, what an opportunity to really, because you talk about great green complexes. To me, that's one that's like hidden and just waiting to be unearthed.
Yeah. I mean, I get so excited. It's been a couple years since I've played it. But I've played it a handful of times. I went out there with a friend doing an article before the last, I guess, PGA, right? Uh, and you just get so excited looking at the sign, and then, gosh, you just can't wait to you're walking up to three, and you turn left, and you see the bunkers on four, and I can never decide if I like four or five better. And there's some killers on the back nine, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to know and study and see some of the pictures, and I think I think there's a lot of interesting golf there, just kind of buried in really long grass. From bringing short grass closer to bunkers, it just is. It is still a bit of a monster in the potential of it, and I think it would be, get that alleyway back on four, like so you can play way out to the right on the second, and then come like it's almost like a backdoor action, like going way, and it's just like a bacon strip now. It's like, no, there's no option here. So
Right, right.
yeah, I think if you just fix the grass lines there, I mean, gosh, what a place.
Yep, 100%. You mentioned working for Tom Doak. You've mentioned working for Gil Hanse and Jim Wagner. What are those? What did you learn in that time? I mean, pretty formative. And by the way, kudos to you for going to learn Mandarin before even having a job, and or going to learn how to work an excavator without before even having anything. That's really a credit to your passion and work ethic. Um, but
Thanks.
what was one of the things, what did you take away from each of those great architects?
Um, yeah, the so I worked for Tom first, and some of the projects, Tom was like exceptionally generous with his time in teaching some of the younger guys. Like there's so many of us that have studied under him, worked under him, that have some still surviving in this crazy golf world. But uh I learned I had an interesting time with him where I got to spend probably more time in his office than a lot of younger guys, and I got to learn a good amount about how to route a golf course from him. I mean, he really taught me how to read a topo map and the things he looks for in terms of routing. Some of it, I got to go to a couple amazing properties and sites with him to scout out a thing or two. Like one was these like 40-meter high sand dunes in the Philippines on like 6 miles of like water. And so it was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But like we also got to work on his most minimalist golf course he did in the country at Dismal River, and then work on the golf course in China where he moved 3 million cubic meters of sand that was dredged onto this island. So you got to see him like apply this like minimalist philosophy in like a grading plan or on the most natural site. And I think that some of his big picture things like that are the things I look back to and how to find the green sites and connect the dots. And the couple times where I've had the opportunity to try to like route a new golf course. So that's I could definitely go back to those lessons from him back then. But that was there's not a lot of 40-meter high sand dunes they'll let you build in the mid area. So I think how starting with Tom was great, and then sort of migrating towards Gil and Jim and their team later in my career was probably the best thing at that point because, Gil's, if you want to learn the business of being a golf architect and working with committees and doing master plans and restorative work, like that's the guy you want to learn that from.
Right.
So, at that point, I was pretty handy on the equipment. By the time I started working for them, thanks to Tom and his associate, like Eric, who really taught me everything. But so you got to see how Gil and Jim worked with the superintendents, and they worked much more closely with contractors, and how, we learned started putting in Billy Bunker and, working with committees and actually having, plans and aerial photographs and figuring out construction budgets, seeing how Jim started to do that and, kind of um, a little bit. It just really sort of set me on a better, not better, but the idea, the best way I could to, one day sort of do it on my own. There's only one Tom, the world's great routing genius, but a lot of what we do is uh, a lot more detailed than that with these master plans for the clubs in the area. So yeah, it's great to have both of them
Sure.
to draw from, and you try to find how to be your like unique self with taking little bits and pieces in between.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. It seems like you are starting to and or have found your voice. You Proper Golf has been around now for a couple of years. What it's been about 5 or so years.
Actually, it was 2014.
Oh, that's
When I got back from China, I had to found Proper Golf. Tom was like, I still did a little bit of work for him. I went to France as an independent contractor, Proper Golf, and then basically all the work I did for Gil and Jim was as a independent. That's just how most people, oh, the business basically has worked forever.
sure. So do you feel
So.
like you have your voice now, like you were saying, you borrowed enough? It seems like you're coming into your own, and now you're starting to really solidify your own voice in the business.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. I guess I think so. Every project I really do feel is different. And so we're always looking for the things that make each individual project unique. And but in terms of like our process, I guess we had certainly been fine-tuned over the last I don't know 8 years or so, starting to do a bunch of master plans in the area. And then really 2020, during COVID, things really picked up. And I think it probably has evolved uh, a few times since then with just volume. I now have a wonderful associate who works for me full time. So he's involved with planning, with even shaping in the field. Nick's been certainly taken our sort of artistic drawings and our presentations to the next level. And yeah, I think. It's just sort of growing, I think, hopefully organically. And there's a lot of cool projects we have coming up. So, it'll probably evolve a little bit here going forward as we just have more and more bigger and bigger things kind of in the next couple years coming up.
Yep. Well, one of them I'm excited to see is Knickerbocker Country Club, and that's I'll be there in a couple of weeks with as you will be, which is will be an exciting day and fun day
Yeah.
to see. What can you tell me about that project and what's been the appeal of it so far, and what are the plans?
Yeah. Knickerbocker is I still think a hidden gem and a really good golf course that has some seriously cool potential for a restoration here in New Jersey. It's up kind of on the border between Tenafly and Bergenfield, but it's a unique golf course. It
Donald Roth design
Donald
originally.
Ross and Herbert Strong.
Yeah.
And so you really heard about the Donald Ross part when we started there, but the more you unpack the history, I think it's like the combination of the two that make it really exceptional. And we, through our process, uncovered, Bill Hook, their incredible uh, golf professional, had started uncovering some of these old photographs from uh, when the golf course was really at its heyday, and you see just some unbelievable bunker shapes with all these kind of cookie cutter puzzle fingers and lobes and stuff all throughout it, and it
Got
uh,
to be
it
exciting.
almost looks. I mean, I back in the when we are starting working on the plans in like 2020, 21, I put a picture up on Instagram, and a friend from the Melbourne Sandbelt reached out and was like, "What Sandbelt golf course is that?" And I was like, "That's
Really?
here in New Jersey." So I think honestly that Herbert Strong put so many of these incredibly artistic and like almost too penal kind of bunkers out there that the golf course slowly started becoming softening over the years because it was like a lot to maintain. But once we're able to start getting the right amount of those and adjust little bits and pieces now, I
Sure.
think it's going to stand out as just like one of the most uniquely bunkered golf courses in the area. And between Ross and Strong, they built some really awesome greens with some like kind of wavy ground undulations through
What,
it.
which is
And
the which green is the one that has the that sort of potato chip flip on the was I thought I saw a picture of it that really kind of a wing is it really high on one side?
there's probably two I would describe like that. Six is the par three is probably with the big giant left kicker.
Yes,
The par
exactly.
three. Yeah, so I actually I did a little golf construction. The worst week of golf construction in my life was actually at Knickerbocker back in like 2010 when I was working for a local golf contractor. We were putting in asphalt pavements in a 110-degree heat wave that
Oh,
week. And I was in the backhoe and the dump truck driving hot asphalt around,
oh
but we
man.
kept driving past number six. And it was, I mean, that giant kicker on the left, at that point, it was surrounded by some willow trees, which no longer are with us, unfortunately. But with a smile on my face, we say that for those who can't see. Uh, but yeah, so getting to go back there and work on these plans is incredible. It's just fun. So like holes 2 through 9 are Herbert strongholds, and then 13 and 14 are also Herbert strongholds. And Ross's kind of go 118 and kind of straight out and back, and Strong came in on the sides over there. And it's funny, like I've been on the fifth hole, and people that have been there for I'm like, oh, isn't this just like the most incredible this just feels like Donald Ross. I'm like, it's actually Herbert over here. But yeah, I
Right,
think
right,
you almost can't tell the difference. And I think I don't think they've ever worked on the same golf course ever again, but I think it's awesome. Kyle Hilgis, their superintendent, has done an unbelievable job opening up the property over the last 5 years. The conditions there, I mean, the last time I played it was like they would have slowed it down for the US Open.
right.
It was so they really do an incredible job over there, and excited for all you guys to come play it.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I saw those pictures, I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is, I feel like,
It
and not to get sidetracked, but I feel like that's what the green speeds has really cost us in great architecture or great, you know, green complexes. I mean, most places don't have the scale to be able to do what great architects in the golden age did, like number eight or number seven at Bethpage. Like you couldn't do a lot of that stuff now because the green speeds are just too fast. So, and if you don't
Yeah.
have the space to sprawl it out to accommodate, then it's, and have that great gradual, tilt, then you just can't do it. So it just, when I saw that flip on six, I was like, this is going to be a good day. I was like looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a fair share of severe greens built by great Golden Age architects that we have to massage a little bit for modern
Sure.
speeds. And there's a couple that are pretty wild at Knickerbocker, but for the most part, they still they have this really unique way of kind of just rolling along the ground there. They haven't lost like a huge amount. They still have quite a few unique co-locations on the vast majority of their greens. Yeah, it's a lot of reclaiming edges of greens and green expansions and tying in the bunkers and little details like that. But they have some real doozies like the 14th, which has like this. We restored the really cool horseshoe bunker built by Strong going all the way around the back of it. That's a really super unique one. But Ross's 15th on top of the hill there is pretty awesome as well. So yeah, it's a fun place.
I can imagine that just talking about it makes me excited to play it, but it must may equally make you excited to be a part of reclaiming and bringing back to life some of those nuggets that that have sort of evolved out of there to some degree.
Yeah, it's I get a big kick out of doing restoration work. From the first one I ever did was at Ridgewood for Gil. When we did all 27 holes. I think it was like 2015. And uh yeah, I think there's some super incredible unique pictures and a unique history to Knickerbocker, and I'm just sort of happy to help them find Donald Ross and Herbert Strong again, and get to blame them for all the bunkers everybody hits in. But yeah, I really enjoy trying to get into analyzing the real details and nuances and trying to use our shaping ability to just make everything look like exact to pictures. I find it pretty cool. It's something I really enjoyed doing with Gil, and yeah, we do a lot of it. It's fun.
How has the process been with Knickerbocker in terms of, and I guess going back to, you know, uh, restoration? There's always this sort of argument: a restoration versus a renovation, and also is it a restoration to the way they intended to play, and they
Yeah,
have modern length, and so
yeah.
is there a standard definition for renovation versus restoration that you use, or that architects use,
Okay. Yeah,
or
it's a great question because as the great Jim Wagner, he will tell you that it's just a bunch of baloney for the most part. It's a very gray word, restoration. Um, there's, yeah, so there's a few ways to do it. We'll call it just to restore a golf course. You have one, you are putting things back using aerial and ground level photos and trying to match things exactly to the pictures. Um, sometimes you have a lot of ground level photos, sometimes you have none of them. You might only have an aerial where then you only know two-dimensional and little bits of shadows here or there, pending the clarity and how good you are at translating those. Um, then you also have, okay, we're restoring based on plans, original plans. Well, the plans weren't always built. Plans are what the architect, quote unquote, intended to do, I guess. But things always seem to be different for the most part. One of the projects I worked on for Gil is like the poster child for this, Aronimink, where Ross drew about 80, 90 bunkers, as he often did. And what they built was 192 of them. So what do you do there?
Wow.
What is original? The guys I learned from, Gil and Tom, will firmly stand for you use the photographs as, the number one guiding source for everything, supplement with plans as needed, because that shows what they actually did. I've worked at some incredible places for those two guys, and we didn't really always look at the plan. We'd sort of talk through some stuff.
Right.
Gil would have plans. There, Tom would have, but they're not. We're not following them super, super, super closely in the construction of these new golf courses.
Right.
But and then you also have the like intent thing or the updating for how golf plays now and the current membership and the green speeds and the distance. And, do you take the two bunkers that were in the drive zone and do you move them to the current drive zone? Or there's like, then you get into like a million shades of gray
Right.
in terms of that stuff. And to be honest, probably everything has at least partial grayness to it. Some people like restoring things more to plans than pictures. Fine, so be it. But I guess um, it's the Knickerbocker is fortunate to have some incredible aerial photos. Some of the other courses, like Morris County, we used photographs there as well. Also, some ground level photos to put things back. But sometimes there's 3% of a green that is pinnable at modern speed. And so you're taking like the exact footprint and everything that they did and trying to just sort of melt it down a little bit so you
Right.
can have the hole locations that they used to have on the right side, front right or back right, on the 17th hole in Morris County, where that hasn't existed in a long, long, long time
Yeah.
now. So it's tricky. It's always you got to take each bunker case by case, each hole case by case, pictures, clubs, architect, and then you just try to every bit of ground experience and working for those guys in the club, and hopefully we come up with the sort of best restorative answer as you can.
Right. And like you said, like all these questions would have been asked and answered prior to starting. Obviously there you're going to meet with, let's say, Knickerbocker, and you're going to say, well, what do you want? What is your intentions? Because we can go down this road, like Dungeons and Dragons here. We can go down one path, or we can go, and that'll lead to a couple of different things, or we can go down this path, and that's going to lead to a whole another case of pluses and minuses and options, and so it seems like there's always a lot to work out prior to and getting on the same page prior to commence work.
Yeah, I think we try to give pretty thoughtful answers and a lot of direction as to where we think things should head prior to starting a plan. And then when we're going through the planning process and have like more and more and more as much historical data as we can, and I spend 10 to 15 days on each one of these properties walking around with the aerial photograph for each hole cropped right next to an aerial photograph of the hole as it is now. And we're like literally analyzing, each bunker at a time, each hole at a time, and really trying to figure out, should we going, how close can we get it back exactly? And then maybe from there, like, what do we need to do that would help things function, play, make a little bit sense now, and you kind of err back towards the picture at all costs. Like, can't go wrong for sure. A lot of these places are, as much sort of museums for these guys as anything. So, yeah, we don't want Mr. Tillinghast coming for us in the afterlife. He would he we just want to not stir up those demons.
Sure. No, and of all of them, definitely not him.
Yeah,
Sure. What
yeah.
of all the great architects and the people that you've been able to work with and the golden age architects that you've been able to unearth or restore or what have you, anything come to mind in terms of a preference, a style? Do you just enjoy tapping into, I get to work on Donald Ross and Herbert Strong this time and Tillinghast in this case? Is it the variety that you get to touch, or does the juices get flowing for, let's say, one particular or one aspect of an architect?
Yeah, I mean, I really like doing all of it, honestly, and I don't want to be an expert in like any particular like one architect. I kind of like think, if you're just an expert at reading the aerial photographs and and can be an expert on that particular club, that's really what matters the most in terms of that stuff. So I like doing a lot of different things. And there's a handful of clubs where, it is a renovation. And it's just, I get to be as creative as I can and do my own version of taking what they have and trying to help the strategies and playability relate to the best natural features and make it as interesting as you can. So we have a handful of projects like that, and sometimes there's like a little bit of historical inspiration here or there that might set you on a path for a style a little bit, but I mean, we kind of do a little bit of everything. We've got sandscape giant areas out at Laurel Links on Long Island. We do very artistically sculpted, muscular bunkers at Manhattan Woods. We do flat bottom McDonald stuff at Morris County. Trying to figure out, Canoebrook is an interesting one where they have a wide variety of architects that have worked on both golf courses there, and they have two of them. And do you keep them the same? Do you keep them different? What is worth restoring? A lot of it's different. The Patterson Club at Connecticut is a unique, case of its own in terms of the Trent Jones Sr. Original design, where he did a lot of cool stuff, and it's evolved over time there too. So some things have like, riffing off his original plan, and some are just making some changes to tie into their unique property. And one of the other cool, like, and then St. Andrews Golf Club, the oldest, operating club in the country. We're trying to roll the clocks all the way back and do like a, kind of like a Victorian looking style to that golf course, but help it play more kind of like we'd think a golden age, or some of the best kind of more modern courses, and kind of tie into their crazy uh rugged, severe, rocky property there. So, each place has unique challenges, and I just think it's spending a lot of time at each place trying to figure out what is going to be the best, because, there's a lot of unique golf in the area, and that's probably why it's so good, is they're all a little different.
All right, so give me, before we wrap up here, give me the one tip that's going to help me survive Knickerbocker without embarrassing myself.
Um, Bounce it on the front of the green. honestly.
All
I
right.
would
Play the
imagine
front yardage. Is that what you
Kyle
want?
Kyle is an absolute magician with the turf. So if we know I know him, if the weather will allow it, there I would bounce her on the front and let the ball ripple across.
All right. Play the front yardage. Got it. Duly noted. And then let the games begin from there.
Absolutely.
Jaeger Kovich, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a little preview of what we're going to see from your presentation at Knickerbocker in a couple of weeks. Best of luck to you. I think Knickerbocker's got the right man for the job and is in great hands. And it sounds like you guys have a great relationship, so that's even better. Really appreciate you carving out a piece of your day and joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's we look forward to having you guys in Knickerbocker, but we'll give all the credit to Mr. Ross and Herbie Strong over there. But sounds good.
Sounds
We'll
good.
take
Thank
them on together.
well, thanks for bringing them back to life. How about that? That's
We'll take that. Yeah, perfect.
awesome. All right, Jaeger, thank you and thank you for your time and have a great day.
See ya.